So today I have the pleasure of chatting to Andy Mann. This is located out in Boulder in Colorado, having traveled from San Francisco at 21 Celsius temperature, arrived in Boulder to about minus 14 Celsius, so a bit of a shock to the system. The next day met with Andy in his front yard in his studio, had a great chat. It's been a long time coming, this one. Knew Andy a while back, and he's led some great trips for us out to Svalbard, etc., and finally got to meet him in person and have a chat in his studio. A bit about Andy, Emmy-nominated director, 3-time Telly Award winner, National Geographic photographer and marine conservationist, and his imagery is helping tell the story of our rapidly changing planet. Andy's also a founding member of the Sea Legacy Collective and has worked on all 7 continents, and his imagery is powerful and is really changing the way we look at the oceans of today. So here it is with Andy Mann. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll take it from there. Well, good to finally meet you, Andy. It's only been like, 4 years, I think, since we sort of first made contact?
Yeah, just emails and ships in the night.
Yeah, exactly. Finally managed to make it work.
You did. You came all the way to Boulder.
I know,
snowy Boulder.
From 21 Celsius in San Francisco to fucking minus 14 here.
It's brutal here. Yeah. You picked a bad...
How do you explain that?
I don't know. It's winter in the Rockies.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So how long you... I mean, this is a pretty cool setup. So we're in Boulder at the moment, just to explain. Andy's place in his studio.
Yeah.
We've got the Flatiron sort of just in the distance off there. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're in the east side of the Rocky Mountains, and Boulder's kind of this high. It's really like high plains, high desert.
Yeah.
Where we are here, because it's so flat everywhere else, but then it goes up to the Flatirons, and we're in Niwot, Colorado, which is like a little agricultural town, like 10 minutes outside of Boulder, and then I have this used to be an old stable to park your horses. To go to the school in Niwot. And so I converted this into my little working studio during COVID, where I could spend more time and, help my wife and, and the 2 kids we have, be close enough to home, but still kind of a walking distance away from it. And so...
And the home itself, which you just showed me, is pretty cool as well. That's
cool, like an old converted barn. So it's like this kind of rural Colorado vibe we got out here. And this is not something you could buy in Boulder anymore, right? Yeah. And so it's nice being a little out of town.
Yeah, cool. And so how's it been for the last hopefully on the backside of COVID?
Yeah.
It looks like, in terms of, it's been strange times, hasn't it? But
it has.
How's that sort of fared for you? Has it been...
Yeah, I mean, lucky enough that I feel like, most of my work, I sort of have my eggs in a lot of baskets. Yeah. So I do commercial film production, and then I do live speaking, and I do adventure workshops and guiding, but my main focus is marine conservation.
Yeah.
And I work for an organization called Sea Legacy as a fellow, and so my work is documenting our planet, our changing planet, and making sure those images get to the politicians and the people that are campaigning and lobbying for specific marine protections. And so that stuff was still going on a lot of ways. I was still going on expeditions and collecting the assets.
Yeah.
And then doing a lot of Zoom calls with politicians and stuff and showing them the images and trying to keep that political wheel turning. And it had its challenges for sure. But, it was I also used that time to build a garden and get chickens and build the studio. And
the garden looks amazing, mate.
Thanks, man.
It's covered in snow.
It's covered in snow. They're freezing out there. And be with the fam, so it's trying to make the best of it.
You've got quite a young family. We'll come on to that, but it's sort of... I was just looking at some of your accolades here, in terms of Nat Geo photographer, senior fellow at Sea Legacy, Sony Artisan of Imagery, co-founder of 3 Strings Productions, Emmy-nominated director, marine conservationist, and then the headline, of course, was Natural World Safari Specialist Leader.
Right. Yeah, totally.
that was obviously your favourite.
I use that one.
Yeah, all the time. But I mean, that's pretty amazing sort of list of achievements, isn't it? You know what I mean? And it's a very sort of competitive arena that you work in.
Yeah.
So, but sort of take us back to the beginning in terms of how did it start? How did you get into photography, and you do the film side of it as well. You're not just a photographer as such. How did it happen?
Yeah, so basically happened where like I studied marine biology in college, and then after college I moved to Colorado to like be in the mountains, and I fell in love with rock climbing and adventure, and basically I picked up a camera to start documenting me and my friends climbing around the world, really, and I was just cooking in kitchens, and I sort of wasn't getting any projects in marine conservation at the time, and I started working for Climbing Magazine, which was in town, and getting like a small retainer with them, and basically just living in the back of my truck, traveling around the U.S. like documenting rock climbing for years. Making films, and I just, those athletes and all those companies have just had so many relationships that like, I was working for the bigger brands too, shooting commercial stuff and working with sponsored athletes, and that got me and climbing around the world, like not just, it started like bouldering and rope climbing here, but it led to like big wall expeditions all around the world. And that got me into National Geographic, shooting adventure stories. Well, my first assignment for them...
how long ago was this roughly?
I got my first camera in 2005.
Yeah.
And then I was full-time shooting climbing in 2007. My first assignment for National Geographic was 2013. And they looked at me as like having a certain skill set, which was like you could be one guy on a super rough, suffering expedition, creating great photo and video content, not needing assistance, not being light and fast, and also a valuable member of the team. Like I have pretty high morale in shitty conditions. Like
Is that quite important?
So they had this expedition to go to this place called Franz Josef Land, Russia. Yeah. Which is an Arctic archipelago of 190 islands, but hadn't been, like an American journalist hadn't been there in like 90 years at the time. So they were like, Andy's perfect. Just throw him on the boat. He'll go out there. He'll document, the field science and all this stuff. He has the skill set.
Yeah.
And that was with National Geographic's Pristine Seas team. So we went up there for like 2 months, and that was my first time documenting natural history. Like what was cool was like the field scientists, like that was the adventure that I was used to seeing with the climbers. That was a red carpet to amazing stories, and we were doing these big transects across these snowy islands, and it was exciting and dangerous, but it was my first time photographing wildlife too, and I felt like a schmuck out there, like on my first assignment for National Geographic, like trying to figure out how to photograph a polar bear or walrus, and like I was like, I'm not going to be the next Franz Lanting. That's what I thought, and certainly probably never going to be. But we got back from that, and then Russia declared within 6 months the largest Arctic national park in the world.
Yeah.
And the Royal Geographic Society gave us what's called the Crystal Compass Award for the media assets we had created on that expedition, how it led to the protection of this place. And so I like got back to Boulder, and the thought of like sleeping in my truck and out in the desert, flaking ropes and drinking cheap beers with my friends, like didn't seem that appealing to me anymore. I'd just been on the front lines of conservation. I always thought my work had purpose and meaning because I was inspiring people to go outside. Yeah. But this was another level. Like people were using my work now to help protect the planet.
But is that, so you're saying sort of, okay, surfing has always been sexy.
Right.
Yeah. Skateboarding, sort of sexy.
Yeah.
Climbing's becoming sexy.
Right.
And it is sort of now, especially with free soda and everything like that.
Yeah.
So science is now sexy, you're saying?
Science is so sexy. I mean, these are my heroes. I mean,
but it is, these frontline conservationists, they're putting their lives on the line.
It's crazy. It's sweet.
And to actually be able to sort of, record that photographically or film-wise, it's incredible, isn't it? And it is now, it is becoming that sort of sexy sort of job.
It's cool. Yeah, and also it's like the access you get.
Yeah.
Like to go to a place like and be able to photograph wildlife at a place like Franz Josef Land, or go to the places in the ocean that I document. There are no systems to go there outside of these scientific expeditions. like you could book a trip with Natural World Safaris and go to these zones and shoot some of the same animals.
Yeah.
But you're not going to spend 45 days on foot on Franz Josef Land.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're going to get, so for me, it was like, I was getting the access that was exciting. Biologists were becoming a red carpet to see the world. Climbers once were for me.
And so is that what sort of motivates you in terms of for your photographic work? In terms of, okay, it starts sort of from a lot of the things that I read and stuff, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seems that it often starts from a commercial sort of side, and it has to, in terms of so that you can get a foot in the door. But then from there, what motivates you in your photographic work? It's not really the commercial side, as I understand.
No, it's about
we all have to make money, but
right, we all have to make money, but it's about how those assets are being used, and how.
Yeah.
So the places I work now are like tipping points for conservation. Like, you know, at Sea Legacy, like we work with organizations all over the world, and like we're focused on creating marine protected areas. So if there's like momentum in a certain country around that, we'll sort of parachute in, collect, like launch an expedition, collect assets, tell the stories, most likely the field scientists and the activists on the ground, try to include all the stakeholders, create campaigns and lobbying that's super loud that locals couldn't necessarily do alone, and try to get those bills on the floor and passed.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my work didn't just come out of the camera and onto a dusty hard drive. It came out of my camera and I put it in front of a president or a prime minister or somebody that it impacted. That's my goal. That's the sharpest edge, I think.
Yeah. So it's actually got sort of justifiable reasons behind it in terms of, you know, a lot of people are photographers these days, aren't they? You know what I mean? It's sort of everyone's got a camera in their pocket, you know, so it's quite a sort of, it's not an easy thing to do, but in terms of everyone has access to that straight away.
Right.
But in terms of being actually able to sort of make it worthwhile, it's a different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
But how does that, so in terms of traveling, I've just noticed your socks, they're incredible.
These are my kids and my dog.
Yep, they're pink and turquoise socks with pictures of your kids and dog in. Yep.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thanks.
But so how does that, I mean, it's a good sort of, how does it work with family, you know, in terms of, I can remember, I think we were in touch just as you had your first kid.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had a young family as well, sort of, as I've developed the business and stuff like that. How have you balanced that? You know, you're away a lot, I would say, probably more than myself, and I'm away a lot.
Yeah, I'm away a lot. It's always been like the balance. You know, I've been traveling as a photographer since, you know, I first met my wife, and she's always supported me, and we knew we'd have to come up with a system, which works sometimes. It doesn't all the time work. Yeah. Like, you know, she picks up the slack, no doubt about it. But I think they believe in the work that I do as you know, being something that's worth sacrificing for. Certainly, and you ask like what drives my work. I'm weighing in like, you know, I don't just go shoot to collect images, and I don't that much go and shoot just for the money anymore. Like, it has to have some purpose and meaning, because I'm going to leave my family and miss out on things to do it. But there's all kinds of tricks. Like, I could do a whole podcast on like being a traveling dad and how to like reintegrate with the family when getting back and all these things. Yeah. And it's there's like a science behind it. It's like,
so you think you got it down? You've sort of...
No.
So when I go to the house and ask later, ask your wife.
Still a student.
But no, it is a juggling act, isn't it? You know, it's sort of... But so from the photography side, I mean, you've got a long way to go, obviously, but what to date would you say is your sort of biggest sort of personal achievement on that, you know, in terms of what's the project or an image that you've gone, shit, that nailed it for me, or for a project, you know, or for, as you say, presenting to a president or changing the minds of someone. What's that image or that series that really sort of nailed it for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I've been working in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, which is Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama. Yeah. Trying to create the world's first interconnected marine protected areas. because fish know no boundaries, obviously.
Yeah.
They leave the park and then they get fish. So we're trying to connect those migration corridors. And so I've been working with the parliaments and governments of these places and the scientific organizations in all these countries. And then I got to sit with the presidents of the last 3 countries in that region to do it.
Yeah.
In their office when they sign the bill into protection. So it's that sort of validates showing me that they heard my message.
Yeah.
They want me there to be part of that ceremony. And that is born out of hitting the shutter button when I thought it mattered.
Yeah.
And getting there and doing it, all that stuff is so unsexy. I mean, it's cool to be in a president's office, right? And you're like, wow, I'm doing it. But I'm like, okay, the images that ran this campaign was me like scrounging to get there. Yeah. Trying to, get the shots.
And that's the thing, the images are sort of whilst they can be brutal, they're the sort of glossy side of it, aren't they? You don't always, on those sort of documentaries that you often see, it's the behind the scenes element that I always like more than the actual sort of glossy documentary at the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of how do you get there, what were the problems involved and stuff like that. And I bet you've got a good show reel on all that stuff.
I do. Yeah. And it's happening like really feverishly right now. I mean, there's a lot of countries like creating large marine protections, and I'm trying to be there to support them and help amplify and shine a light on them and pressure other countries. And that's kind of where that's at, but I'm also like, I have all these moments of images that I'm so proud of that become like these topics of conversation that lead people into my journey and lead people into their own journey of like, how important conservation is and things.
And that's what I was going to ask here, in terms of what does the power of the imagery mean to you, in terms of, how does that help wider conservation efforts and stuff? And you've touched on it there, in terms of it's key, isn't it, these days, in terms of sort of changing people's mindsets and... Yeah,
I mean, totally. Like, like for instance, the polar bear image I got leading the safari in Svalbard in 2018.
I think it was 18, yeah.
We're just looking right through the porthole, and I have a 12mm lens on. It's, it's just so random that the moment even happened, and I was super lucky, but like...
Yeah, we weren't. We got in trouble for that. But it's interesting, isn't it? In terms of and sorry to interrupt you on that, but in terms of what's the boundary between... I mean, it was an amazing image.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me, it's positive, and it, in terms of, for me, obviously my background is travel, which is slightly different to yours. Yours is more sort of... I like to think ours is educational through travel. Yours is educational through photography.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line, isn't it, between getting it right or getting it wrong? And I think that image was amazing, and I think it was right. Some people look at it and go, "Why is a polar bear got its, front paws on the deck and stuff like that?" And it's fine if they approach you and stuff like that. Those are the regs and stuff like that. So nothing was done wrong, but you can be criticised, can't you?
So
in
all
these
the
situations,
time. Well, actually, not all the time. I don't seem to be in the spotlight of that.
No,
I think because there's
I'll edit that bit out.
Right. You put those fires out. I mean...
But you know what I mean? It's a fine line, isn't it, between, in terms of sort of travel and going into, natural wildlife habitat and stuff and having a positive or negative impact on it.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
And it's also like a fine line of like the person that's going to go out there and experience that stuff. Like, you want to experience like animals in their natural environment. Like it's just more in that experience than if you were like baiting animals to like collect a photo. It's like, what's the point of even having the impact out there? It's like these places are amazing to go out and fall in love with and take images and share, and you become an ambassador for that place. Especially if you when you have an experience like that. Like that's the closest I've ever been to a polar bear. And I've spent hundreds of days in the Arctic. Yeah. Right. And never gotten that close. And that was just totally random. And that's why that moment's special to me.
Well, I've now got that image blown up in my office.
Okay, cool.
In the UK.
Awesome.
That's awesome. It's really cool. Stunning image, isn't it?
Yeah. And
so one of your favorite images, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love it. It's just because, people want to hear the story behind it.
Yeah.
And that allows me to like talk about why I like to go there, and you know what an image like this can do, and what an experience for someone like that could do. You know.
But then, so what is, again, tricky conversation. But in terms of what obviously Franz Josef Land, you said that brought you into the conservation side of things, but now, as you've said, you know, with Sea Legacy and everything like that, you are more of an ambassador for the oceans on the planet, aren't you? You know, in terms of that, a lot of specialists we work with are land-based, you know, and you're one of the only that are ocean-based. And I think that traditionally there haven't been many ocean-based sort of conservation efforts. It's only coming through in the last sort of, you know, 10, 15 years or so, you know what I mean? That it's really sort of gaining a bit more traction, and people have sort of truly understood how valuable the oceans are and stuff like that, haven't they? Don't you think, in terms of, you know, I wrote down some stuff earlier, you know, in terms of 80% of our oceans are unmapped or unexplored. I'm sure you'll correct me on some of these things. You know, 80-90% of all life on Earth is found in our oceans, you know, and I think I was reading yesterday, 30,000 sharks killed each hour. And like 10 humans killed by sharks every year. Yeah. It's like, okay, we've got this slightly wrong.
For sure, we got it wrong. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is just like the hard work of like the campaigning to get people to care about it. I mean, it's like the ocean.
Campaigning against people to like sharks in terms of Jaws, whilst, you know, and I know you
that
must
was
have
a
heard
setback.
This a million times, but, you know, it was a film that just has put people off, hasn't it?
Yeah. And like, that's why seeing a shark in the wild and swimming with one and diving with it, like, you know, I swim with sharks all the time. Yeah. And I take people swimming with sharks all the time that never have. Yeah. And no one is ever afraid in the water. Like, they get out and they're shaking with excitement. They're like, "Did you see that?" They couldn't believe it. And it's like, you know, it's easy to have a preconceived, you know, idea of an animal if you're thinking about Jaws and things, or you've been imprinted at a young age. Yeah. And you can't blame people for that at all, you know, but, you know, that's hurt their protection. People haven't cared for them as much because of things like that. And they're an integral part of the ecosystem, you know, as any apex predator is, to keep everything in balance. But people are getting tuned into the oceans more. I mean, it's a place that people don't see, right? There's this thin blue line that covers the planet. People don't dunk their head under it. So, and all the big industrial fishing happens out of sight mostly. And so it's kind of an invisible enemy in a lot of ways. It's a tough battle to fight, but.
So you think it's been overlooked in regards to conservation stuff, the oceans?
Oh yeah, big time.
So I mean, you were sort of talking about polar bears and the Arctic and stuff like that. In terms of the oceans, you know, it is one ocean, obviously, you know, that sort of encircles us. You know, what are the main issues that we've got, you know, in terms of the poster child for sort of wildlife conservation was sort of WWF, you know, the panda and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, and whilst it's sort of the opposite, but the poster child of plastics and stuff is the plastic straw. Right. You know, but I keep sort of thinking about it. I'm like, straws are really small, you know, and I know they're not good. But
and pandas should be extinct.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I could go all day on straws and pandas. They're like
pandas using straws.
Exactly. I mean, to me,
straws. But you know, in terms of straws, surely there are worse problems in terms of than plastic straws that, you know, affecting the oceans and stuff. You look at the whole fishing industry and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't blame people, because when I have conversations with people about protecting the ocean, everyone wants to talk about plastics, straws, because they see it. They can see it on the beach. They feel like that they can have an impact on that. Where they're not going to tackle off-sea industrial fishing or ever see it or probably ever care about it. And that's a problem. You know, the plastics problem has more to do with oil and gas subsidies than it does. You have to turn that faucet off, because
to explain that, just so
so plastics are like a byproduct of refining oil, and so it's created no matter what. Yeah. So this is a tricky conversation to have, but, you know, I will say, for instance, like, it is better for a plastic straw to come to Colorado and be put in the ground than it is for Colorado to say, we don't want plastic straws, and those straws to go overseas where they don't have infrastructures, because they're going to end up in the ocean. Yeah. Like I said, the plastic is a faucet and it's coming out, and you can choose not to have it, but it's going to flow somewhere. Right. Because it's going to flow overseas. Yeah. So to tackle the plastic problem, you have to tackle the oil and gas problem. And
which at the moment we're reducing our consumption of oil and gas because of what's happening in Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, it's probably good for...
yeah, exactly. But
you know, and I don't know a ton about it either. Like,
yeah.
This comes from me having conversations with people that work in plastics and ocean conservation, and they're like, you know, it's great for an awareness.
Yeah.
It's great to get people to care about the ocean. It's a bigger issue than just not using straws. Although I'll say that any big movement is not just political, right? It's like there's a high level, right? Someone could just say, we don't want plastics and sign a bill, and that would literally solve it. Yeah. But there's awareness, grassroots awareness that happens in the public. And that general interest is what really starts to sway government decisions. So in that, for people to be aware of it means that someone's being held accountable, and that's good. You know, I'm sort of looking at the one guy who can sign it.
But and I think that's key as well, isn't it? In terms of how do you change the mindset of, you know, the everyday man or woman, you know, in terms of their sort of everyday sort of habits and stuff like that. Okay, and the plastic straw is something that everyone uses every day, or, you know, did and stuff like that. But from what I've sort of seen and stuff as well, you know, the fishing is a huge problem, isn't it? You know what I mean? And the overfishing, you know, and the bycatch and stuff like that, you know, or, you know, in terms of just species being destroyed just for edible species that are being ripped from the oceans, a lot of, you know, of bycatches being destroyed along the way, you know. Yeah. And that's aside from then the nets and the, you know, with the trawlers that are destroying the ocean floor, etc., etc. You know, it's a huge problem, isn't it? And that's very hard for me or you to do much about, or am I wrong? Is it? Or do we just stop eating fish?
No, that's not the solution. You know, the easiest way to explain it is basically that, you know, we need to create marine protect savings accounts for the ocean. Like, we're just withdrawing from one account all the time. Eventually that account's going to run out, and we're going to run out of fish, and we're like, I wish we had a savings account. Yeah. Marine protected areas are big savings account. Hopefully 30% of the ocean by 2030. That's the goal. And if we can fish off the interest of those savings accounts, right, the abundance that spills over, that's sustainable fishing. Yeah. Like, if anything, the ocean's getting healthier, we're feeding more people. The reason why we're just able to keep withdrawing from this account is because these big industrial, unregulated, you know, bad practice fishing organizations are subsidized by their federal governments, for which that they can fish until the last fish is caught. Yeah. Economically, they can still do that. If they weren't subsidized, it'd be a natural economy that played out where 90% of the boats would just have to go because there's not that many fish they're catching anymore. Fish would be more expensive when it hits your plate, unfortunately. Yeah. But that's sort of the transition that we need to do, and then we can get into sort of a sustainable thing, because we're, you know, billions of people rely on fish to eat and jobs and all these things, and marine protected areas are meant to preserve those jobs, especially culturally. Like, these artisanal fishermen, you know, they lost their way of life because these big industrial fleets will come in and just take everything.
So is that what you're doing? So you did a couple of projects, Timor-Leste, and Galapagos as well, I think.
I've worked in both those,
for the marine protected areas. Mm-hmm. And that was, what was that doing? That was expanding the marine protected areas, or getting them regulated, or
both? It's expanding them, coming up with management plans that are science-based and are resilient to a changing climate as well. And creating these migration corridors in and out of the parks that connect to other parks. Yeah. That's kind of the big thing, you know.
But it's completely different conservation effort, sort of under the surface of the water, isn't it, to land-based conservation efforts. You know, land-based, you've got sort of pre-marked boundaries often, you know what I mean? You know where the wildlife is, you know, and often it is sort of, not always, but it's often resident wildlife. You know what I mean? If you look at sort of big cats or anything like that, okay, the wildebeest migration in Eastern Africa and stuff, that's slightly different, you know, it's free-flowing movement of wildlife, but under the ocean it's quite tricky, isn't it, in terms of, because it is free-flowing movement of fish, etc. You know, it's quite difficult. So you can manage it on the surface of the water, I assume, but it's harder to sort of.
It is, but you know, like we're getting so much great data now as technology advances. Like, you know, we used to have to like kill a fish or something to get data from it, but now we can take skin samples. There's like eDNA, which is really cool, where people can just scoop a glass of water out of the ocean, sequence the DNA of all the animals that have been within, like, you know, 100 feet of that spot where it's sampled, within the last couple days. And so we can find these migration corridors, you know, where it's like, I mean, the ocean is, if you were to drain it, you just see these highways of traffic.
Yeah.
You know, like these are biodiversity hotspots. These are the targeted 30% to protect. And so it does kind of make sense the more you study it. It's just so understudied and underfunded. Yeah. Like less than 1% of philanthropy goes to conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we learned so much about the ecosystem of this planet, how to protect it, how to, you know, live a healthy and abundant sort of coexistence with it pretty quickly, I would say. Yeah. If you know, if someone was like, write down 10 things the planet could do right now, that actually has the power to do. Yeah. I'm not saying like, I wish we still had this species. Like, I'm just saying like, these 10 regulations and 10 bills that could be signed that, you know, would hurt the pockets of like 20 people. That would change a lot. That's the work, you know.
And how would that affect, so if you could, what would the impact of protecting more of our oceans have on the climate in general? The, you know, the crisis that we're seeing on that, is that it's directly
linked. Yeah. So like, you know, more than half of the oxygen we breathe comes from the ocean. Yeah. Like over 90% of the carbon that's sequestered, don't quote me on that. Yeah. Comes from plankton and krill and whales, and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean.
And also overfishing the biggest species, you know, the whales are often the ones that are taken out, aren't they? You know, whales, sharks, you know, and then
they're storing all the carbon.
Yeah.
You know, they're at the top.
Yeah.
And
and then as soon as they're taken out, that sort of, you know, circle of life, Lion King.
It's I mean, sort of, the land and sea are just so connected, you know, and like how valuable, like we're learning that like just mangrove ecosystems are, and seagrass ecosystems, like the most sort of boring ones to people.
I was going to say, they're not the sexy ones, are they? But,
no, but they're the most important. They store the most carbon. They're the pupping grounds and the nurseries for these big species. Yeah. But that's where people want to build beachfront. That's where resorts want to be, you know, so yeah, I mean, we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so Sea Legacy, you mentioned it a bit earlier, you know, and obviously this is your sort of, your niche, you know, in terms of the conservation, ocean side of conservation. Just tell us a bit about Sea Legacy, because I don't know a huge amount about it, but obviously it's a project that you're hugely passionate about. So how does it operate? What does it do? What's the motivations behind it? And what are the results that sort of go, yeah, okay, that worked? Yeah,
I mean, Sea Legacy was born, founded by Christina Mittermeier and Paul Nicklin. Yeah. And then they brought me on as the first person, really, that is a storyteller. And it came from us working at National Geographic, getting access to these tipping point stories, environmentally like important stories, getting access, and then the images and stories being under embargo for years till it was published, and then we couldn't share the images till a year after publication. By that time, like whatever political will or things that were happening at that time had passed. Yeah. So we wanted to be the first like marine conservation organization that was focused on storytelling, and designing and giving people campaigns and assets, and an audience and a distribution platform of millions of people to help amplify and help get petitions signed and help educate and all these things. And so, you know, we work in service of the planet, the species, and people that need these assets to tell their stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say is, I mean, you may have said it already, what's the biggest success story you've had with Sea Legacy, you think?
I mean, it's so cool. I mean, we're only a few years old, really.
Yeah. It is. It's a young organization.
It's a young organization. I mean, I would say like...
But it's needed someone as well to drive it forward, hasn't it, in terms of ocean conservation and...
Yeah. Yeah. It needed someone to be able to, with an eye for a good story. And, you know, we're able to build off our audiences, you know, and sort of bring people in that we had individually from being photographers for National Geographic. Yeah. The biggest success is like anytime like there's a marine protected area put in place. Yeah.
That's what it's
That's true protection.
Yeah.
You know, and like and these are becoming more and more solid, where there's like enforcement and regulations and there's trust funds in perpetuity for these places to be monitored and studied, and And so we're starting to see the resilience of the ocean in these places so quickly, how quickly it rebounds. And so to me, that feels like saving the world when that happens. It's cool, you know. But that's what we want to do. We want to have conservation wins. Yeah.
Fair play. So then, travel, the last sort of topic that I'll grill you on.
Okay, go on.
Travel, sort of COVID and sort of the future in terms of, so when COVID hit, which is now, so where are we now? We're sort of March 22, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much 2 years ago when COVID hit. And at first, I mean, obviously, you know, exceedingly sort of stressful and sad sort of period for everyone. And I don't want to undermine that, you know. Part of me also was like, okay, maybe this will change us, you know, in terms of you saw the footage, you know, of sort of in the UK of deer walking down city streets and stuff like that because everyone was inside, you know. You'd look up and there were no jet trails in the sky and stuff like that. And you sort of felt a bit of a rebirth. That's what I sort of felt. And I was like, oh shit, this could be good. This could be good, yeah. And I was sort of quite hopeful. And then, and don't get me wrong, you know, I'm as guilty as the next person. But then sort of, it feels a bit at the moment that we're post-COVID. I think it's still yet to be seen. But the machines are being cranked up pretty bloody quickly again, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I find that a bit, you know, and obviously I run a travel company, but I find that a bit depressing. Yeah. And one of the things that we're looking at, and we haven't got the solutions for it yet, but it's okay. Well, how does it look different? You know what I mean? In terms of how do you make travel look different? You know, or can't you? You know what I mean? In terms of, you know, so give me some advice. You know, what do I do? You know, because it's a difficult. You know, in terms of travel, should be for me. I think it's an educational tool. You know what I mean? But equally, it's a big problem, isn't it? In terms of environmentally.
Yeah, it's a big problem. I don't know. I don't have the solution for that, really. I mean, I thought, you know, are you sort of surprised with the lack of change that has happened since COVID, or you think that there has been significant change? I don't think there's been much change. I mean, I think, you know, we had to stop, you know, like to use the faucet analogy again, turn it off.
Yeah.
But the pipes were still full behind it. Yeah. And so now it's flowing, you know, and, you know, the economy, you know, we're sort of built on a system that relies on travel and the way that sort of economies are built sort of, you know, I don't know the real way other than like offsetting, right? Those like regulations first. And I also don't think it's people's fault. Like, and I always say this, like people with the plastics and with literally anything, it's not your fault. Like, if you want to get on a plane and go experience the world, like, by all means, go. That's amazing. Like, not everyone's going to do that or be blessed enough to do that. Yeah. But it's important to travel. It's important to get empathy from other people in these landscapes. That's important. The regulations, you know, can be offset. You know, there's laws and bills and things that, you know, people are making just trillions of dollars off the expense of the planet. And it doesn't have to be that way. So, you know, it's more like learning about politics and like how that shit works. It's as unsexy as it is. It's like all roads sort of lead there, you know, and try to be happy. Yeah. Like, try not to like think about it too much. I mean, I think people are educated enough to make good judgments when they can, but it's not your fault if you're given a straw. It's not your fault if there's 50 amazing sushi places that are affordable in your town. Like, someone needs to protect, like, I think governments
needs to come from a higher level.
It does. Yeah. It does. And then, and so I always have hope because I've seen those, you know, it's easy to sit back and sort of see the doom and gloom of it. Yeah. But the solutions, you know, they can be quick. I mean, they're hard to do and they're unpopular. Yeah. But they can happen quick.
So you've got another trip with us coming up in later this year for Svalbard.
Yeah.
I think you have.
Yeah. Yeah. My tickets are there. Yeah, I bought my tickets. So.
Yeah. And that's just, you know, we try and do it in a low impact way. You know, it's just 12 clients on a small ship. Yeah. You know, in terms of, you know, but again, you know, we need to do things better. I'm sorry if I keep putting you under pressure. What's a message or a couple of messages there that you've got 12 clients for about 10 days that are sort of under your guidance, sort of photographically, but also from an educational sort of aspect. What's the message that you would like them to sort of finish that sort of trip with? You know, you're in one of the most pristine areas of the world, isn't it? It's stunning, you know, with polar bears, Arctic fox, walrus, you know, and pretty much no one around. What do you want them to sort of come away from that with? It doesn't matter whether it's with us or with anyone, you know.
I mean, I think like so much of the experience comes from the actual guides themselves, like you know, like learning about the landscapes, and you know, they'll always teach you some, you know, everyone has the polar bear, but you know, there's all the periphery that you'll learn about and stuff, and how these ecosystems are connected. I learned so much from the guides too, you know. But you know, from the images themselves, like I like to show people how to take images that tell a bigger story, you know, and are conversation starters, and that, you know, people are excited about the images artistically too, that, you know, they weren't just focused on like collecting a face of a polar bear, that they thought about, you know, the lens and the optics for which the photo was taken, and then, you know, and how to shoot in that way, you know, in this sort of editorial way that I think is important, because you're obviously going to share those images and you're going to tell the stories behind them, and the more stories in that photo there are, the more interesting it is for them, and it's more interesting it is for you as a photographer. So for me, I'm just trying to, like, you know, teach people how to interact visually with the world and bring these moments home in a cool artistic way that you know, you might not have the opportunity to learn about if you were just going with a guide. That's why I like to share those tips, you know. Yeah,
and I think that's hitting the nail on the head in terms of, over the years it's been about those sort of close-up profile shots, hasn't it? Whether it's a lion or a leopard, or, you know, but now for me, and I think it's as I've sort of grown up, you know, it's more for me, it's sort of that shot of a polar bear or whatever it is in its environment, you know, and understanding that a bit more, you know. And I think that's key, isn't it, these days, sort of understanding, because often you, as you say, it's all about storytelling. You understand much more the story, you know, from its environment and surroundings, rather than just that close-up amazing profile picture. But apart from a beautiful picture, what does it tell you?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, if you're on these expeditions, like, you're part of the story. Like, people forget that they are part of the story. Like, you know, you are the only person this time on this planet experiencing what it's like to be in the Arctic now, on that day. Like, you're one of 12 people. That's incredible. Like, you're part of that story. And, you know, that you just took a portrait shot of a polar bear only. That could have been taken 50 years ago, or 50 from now. You know, like, how do you be part of it? So, like, I like to put my friends in the shots and, like, capture that trip too, because that connects it.
I think that's an awesome place to sort of finish. I think the one last thing is I'd sort of just two things in terms of, okay, what's the one trip that you want to do going forwards, you know, from a sort of work point, you know, and sort of what do you want to achieve from your photographic work through that? You know, is there something that, not necessarily something you got lined up, but you like, and you don't have to give any secrets away, don't worry.
Yeah,
but in terms of something that you're like, I would love, you know, that I would love to achieve that through my camera work going forwards.
Yeah.
You know, either geographically or sort of in a specific project.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, like, I want to develop, like, my storytelling abilities, you know, beyond just using an image, you know, like, you know, that adage, like, a photo's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
It's not. It's silent, and people flip past it, and so, you know, like, I'm developing this new live show, which is a storytelling experience to big audiences, and it's meant to connect in a way that you could never connect if you were just even looking at an image. You know, it's the stories behind it, and so it's sort of involving more, you know, policymakers and presidents into those stories. I did a short film where I took a president from Timor-Leste and a prime minister, and he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He had never been in the water in Timor-Leste. He'd never seen it. It's the most biodiverse coral reef on the planet.
Amazing.
And it took so much haggling and to get him to come out on the boat. And he put a mask on. He got in the water, and I told his story. Now he's the self-proclaimed king of the Coral Kingdom, and he's speaking at UN meetings and saying we've got to protect. And it's because he got in the water, and I was like, So for me, it's like.
And that's one person that had a huge impact on.
Huge impact,
yeah.
And the people of his country follow him. He's a war hero, and all these things. And so, for me, it's like I'm always trying to find that. What I keep saying is the sharpest edge to my work, and involving more people in those stories so they can be part of it, and believe in it, and it can come from them, come from their voice, and sort of spread it that way.
So what's the? So just finish on what's the show called? Have you got a name for it yet or anything like that? Or where will we ever see it? Or?
Yeah, so I don't have a name for it yet. It's either called The Wave Maker or Making Waves, or that's sort of the working titles.
Yeah.
Be revealed. But it's live. I'm writing the music for it. It sort of pulls on like folk songwriting traditions and storytelling, sort of over like musical progressions and things. And there'll be photos and video, and it's new and it's unique and it's risky and it's scary and it's everything I want.
They're the best things, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're pushing yourself in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where can people follow you? Instagram or
yeah, Instagram's
website?
the best thing. It's just Andy_Mann, MANN. Yeah. That's the place where I probably should diversify more, but it's my biggest audience. And so, and then, in the show, I'm hoping to, do it all around the country. In the U.S., at least for now. Yeah. It'd be theaters, performing arts centers.
Little preview on the Svalbard trip this year.
And then, I should bring a guitar. I've always thought about it. I actually think I played the northernmost concert I'm not certain of this, but on that Svalbard trip, I brought a guitar, and we were at 90 degrees north on the boat.
Brilliant.
And I did an evening concert. There was a lot of people on the ship, 100 people or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if there's been a more northern live performance ever. So I may have that.
Yeah, exactly. One down.
Yeah, thanks.
Andy, I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Likewise, man.
And meet you finally.
Yeah.
And I'm going to check that your wife does think you really do know how to sort of juggle the work-life balance.
I told you I was still a student. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Cheers.